Good afternoon. We want to thank you for joining us here at the National Weather Service, Weather Forecast Office Guam, on our Facebook Live for our updated information on Tropical Storm Sinlaku, currently in Chuuk State, has been sitting there for quite a while, for a good 24 hours now, as it has becoming better formed and still set to sit right there in Chuuk State for yet another couple of days. We're going to wait just a couple more minutes, and then we will take things off with Joshua Schenk with some details on the latest trends and the latest information on our tropical storm. All right, I think we got everybody that's going to come in. We'll get some more people joining. But again, thank you for joining us here on the National Weather Service, Weather Forecast Office Guam, on our Facebook page for the latest information with Tropical Storm Sinlaku. And so to start us off, we've got the meteorologist, Joshua Schenk, who's going to give us a little bit more information on just what we're looking at with our recent advisory from the Joint Typhoon Warning Center as of 2 p.m. this afternoon.
Actually, we had information from 5 p.m. Talking to them. They currently have a distance around 8.2 north, 151 east, which puts us about 75 miles northwest of Chuuk Lagoon. We currently have tropical storm warnings out for Chuuk, Fananu, Lulu, and Palawat in Chuuk State. This means tropical storm conditions are occurring with damaging winds of 39 to 73 miles per hour. We also have a typhoon watch in for Lulu in Chuuk State, and that means winds of 74 miles per hour or greater are possible within 48 hours. This system has been moving very slowly, almost stationary over the past few hours, and is expected to continue at least through tonight, potentially picking up speed Saturday into Sunday as it moves northwest towards the Marianas.
And currently, we're looking at infrared satellite imagery. And Joshua, can you tell me, we're seeing a lot of, toward the end of this loop, we see a lot of green. We see a few pockets of white, some blues. What does all that mean for the Chuuk State folks?
Yes, so the areas where you're seeing the dark blacks, greens, and then especially the blues here, that's a signature of very deep convection, which can potentially bring heavy rainfall, especially locally heavy rainfall underneath those cores. Right now we're seeing the heaviest stuff currently just west of Chuuk, but we also see outer bands kind of west of Ponape and then spreading onward into western Chuuk State as well.
We've been getting some questions from regional media, some other folks out of the public, and one of the questions is, across Pohnpei State, there's a lot of heavy showers, there's some strong winds, and so the question is there something else forming, or is this the main system?
This is the main system. Like I said, we are seeing these heavy bands on the eastern side of the tropical storm that have been occurring just outside the coastal waters of Pohnpei, but as tropical storm tropical storm Sinlaku continues to move northwest, that should start to pull the heavy stuff around. However, because of its slow motion, westerly to southerly winds will continue across Chuuk and Chuuk State for a while. So even as it starts to pull away, these tropical storm force winds will be pretty persistent for a period of time.
All right, well, thank you very much, Joshua. We're going to do a quick switcheroo, and would you mind taking the camera and want to come over to our other screen and want to go over a few details. I'm Brandon Eilert, meteorologist in charge, and thank you for joining us. We're going to be ramping up our communications as we move forward the next several days, especially as we look at this developing threat for the Marianas. But first, Joshua, come on in. I want to get a nice close-up and just talk about some definitions. You're going to be hearing a lot of these terms the next several days. The first of which is tropical cyclone. Tropical cyclone is just a general term to reference all levels of tropical depressions, tropical storms, typhoons, super typhoons. The weakest is that tropical depression where we have sustained winds up to 38 miles per hour. We have just moved out of that category, and so now we are looking at a tropical storm. And so a tropical storm is maximum sustained winds of 39 to 73 miles per hour. As we move into Saturday, we're expecting to see continued intensification of Tropical Storm Sinlaku, such that it could become a typhoon, reaching sustained winds of 74 miles per hour or more. Sometime later on Saturday, still trying to exit out of Chuuk State. The worst case scenario is that super typhoon. And fortunately, we're not seeing any signs that we could be seeing a super typhoon, a system that is 150 miles per hour or greater. And that's always on the back of our minds for these slow moving systems as they approach the Marianas. But fortunately, we don't really see that as a threat right now. So this is some of the wind data that we were looking at earlier today. And what's notable is you can clearly see the center of this tropical storm right there. Those winds are starting to swirl around into the center. Additionally, well to the north side, those winds are starting to pick up as well, where now we're seeing 25 to 30 knot winds. So roughly that's about 30 to 35 mile per hour winds. Not usually for the boaters, the mariners. Down to the south, we're seeing all these westerly winds, strong westerly winds. We're looking at 20 to 30 miles per hour. So for anybody down to the south side of the system in the coming days, as it tracks northwestward, you're going to be seeing some strong westerly winds through the weekend into early next week. This is going to be significant for parts of Yap State, for central and eastern Yap State islands. The interesting thing is Joshua showed some of those showers, those peripheral showers, and they're kind of setting up just near Pohnpei, just east or just to the west of Pohnpei. This is kind of that convergence between the easterly winds and the westerly winds, and that is really setting up some heavy showers that's going to persist for the next couple of days going forward. So there's a couple trends. We've been talking about and initially looking at a passage just south of Guam. This was the first forecast track yesterday. It persisted Thursday evening, overnight into Friday morning, this morning. But every track number 2, track number 3, number 4, and our latest, track number 5, they've all been shifting a little bit north. Just a little bit farther north. And so that has been concerning because initially we're looking at high-end tropical storm conditions, potentially Category 1 typhoon conditions for Guam. But then that brought those stronger typhoon conditions. And so with the latest advisory as of 2 o'clock this afternoon, we're looking at the potential for Category 3, 120 mile per hour typhoon passing over Guam early next week around Tuesday. Now with that said, we've seen all these track shifts already, and I would not be surprised to see continued track shifts. The big question is right here in Chuuk State, where we see this very slow motion. Joshua mentioned that Tropical Storm Sinlaku was moving, was almost just a near stationary drift. We're looking at seeing that condition persist tonight into Saturday, perhaps into Saturday night, before an eventual overall motion toward the northwest. Right now, that's going to be the biggest question, is just how is it going to move over the next 24 to 36 hours as we head into Saturday night. And that's going to have slight implications on just where this track could go. And I'll show you a little bit more on that uncertainty that we want to keep in mind. This cone, this shaded area, is indicating where that uncertainty lies. The width of this cone is related to the tropical cyclone forecast errors of the past 5 years. And for every timestamp along a forecast track, it gets wider because of that increasing uncertainty. And so what this means is 2/3, 66% of all tropical cyclones, the centers stay within this shaded area. 1 out of 3 tropical cyclone centers could actually venture out. We've seen that happen with past storms. Typhoon Dolphin in 2015, Typhoon Mancut in 2018 ventured a little bit outside of that shaded area. That is just the center. Those impacts can expand hundreds of miles outside away from the center. So right now we see Guam right here in the center of the shaded area. But Rota, Tinian, Saipan, you're still within this area. So watch out. Would not stay too focused on this center line because those little shifts can happen. And especially with this short term, next 36 hours, very slow motion, we could see some adjustments in the long range. So keep that in mind as you start to prepare for a potential Category 3 typhoon moving through the Marianas. So what can we expect? Let's go to our neighbors down in Chuuk State. Chuuk State, you're dealing with the impacts right now. We're dealing with a very slow system. That Tropical Storm Sinlaku is not going to be moving very much. The wind field will be expanding, and so the concern is for many of the islands that are already experiencing tropical storm conditions, those conditions are going to persist tonight. They're going to continue into Saturday. They're going to persist into Saturday night, all the while Tropical Storm Sinlaku is intensifying. So what you're seeing now will likely get worse as you go into Saturday, night. So keep that in mind. We're already getting reports of some notable coastal inundation. A lot of trees are coming down, breadfruit trees. We're hearing of some shoreline damage with some of the infrastructure. This is going to continue for the next 36 hours or so. So stay put. There's a lot of westerly vulnerabilities for a lot of the islands and the ports. You're going to be exposed to that swell coming in from the west on the south side of Sinlaku. So be prepared. This is going to be a long event as you go into the overnight hours tonight and Saturday night. Be aware. It's going to be unnerving. It's going to be loud. It's going to be noisy with those winds howling at times, especially as the heavy rains push through. Winds, we're looking at tropical storm winds, 40 to 50 miles per hour across much of Chuuk State. We do have the 4 islands under watches or warnings, but there's a lot of other populated islands that are not designated as warning points for us. You're going to be experiencing these same conditions, and so it is very important to refrain from any type of inter-island travel. The sea conditions are going to be treacherous, very choppy seas. We're looking at massive seas. What you might see on one side of the island, especially on the east side, is going to be fairly well protected by the island. But once you get into the exposed waters, those seas are going to become increasingly choppy. And it doesn't take much of a distance for the waters to respond. For areas south of the tropical storm, you're going to see more of a westerly swell type of pattern. Areas north of the tropical storm center will see easterly swell, anywhere from northeast to east to southeast. So keep that in mind. And as Tropical Storm Sinlaku eventually moves out of the area to the northwest, that's going to have some effects on those sea conditions. So going forward, prolonged heavy rains. Joshua's satellite imagery, you saw that. Chuuk Lagoon was just on the edge of that very heavy rainfall. Those rains shift a little bit farther eastward. Chuuk, the higher, steeper terrain of the Chuuk Islands, are going to be seeing a lot of rainfall. That's going to increase the threat of mudslides, and so that's going to be a very real concern. We've seen some notable mudslides in the past. Dangerous seas and surf, some coastal inundation. Stay out of the water. It is not a good time to be in the water. And of course, with the wind gust, we're going to be seeing some loose objects flying around. Of course, more downed trees are quite possible. As we move westward, we're talking about the eastern Yap State Islands. Right now, we don't see such a direct tropical cyclone threat to the islands, but those stronger winds that we saw well south of the tropical storm center, they are going to start spreading westward into eastern Yap State, into central Yap State. And with that in mind, we're going to be seeing some pretty strong west winds over the next several days in those outer central and eastern Yap State Islands. Anticipate 20, 30 mile per hour winds with much stronger gusts, 40 miles per hour, 45 miles per hour, as heavy showers push through on those westerlies. Same thing, westerly swell threat for many of the islands. This is not a good time to be on the waters. Anticipate those strong, blustery, gusty winds. We're going to be keeping an eye on conditions to see how this wind field might expand over the next 24 to 48 hours in case the wind field of Tropical Storm Sinlaku could encompass some of the Yap State Islands. And if so, we would be changing our watch and warning status to maybe lift, to issue some watches and warnings. Now, as we move into the Marianas, we're right now just kind of combining all 4 islands, Guam, Rota, Tinian, Saipan, because there's still some track variability that we could anticipate for the next few days. Currently, no tropical cyclone watches or warnings. They will be keyed off of the 48-hour till onset of damaging tropical storm winds of 39 miles per hour. We're going to be looking at conditions overnight, the forecast tracks, and tomorrow, and we're going to be making some decisions as we look at that timeline to the onset. But right now, the latest forecast track suggests tropical storm winds arriving in Guam Monday morning. Like I said earlier, we're looking at a potentially prolonged event with those tropical storm conditions first arriving at Guam Monday morning, possibly lingering into Wednesday morning. That's a 48-hour window that we could be looking at tropical storm conditions. The peak conditions, if we have the center of the developing and intensifying Sinlaku move over Guam, we could be looking at Category 3 typhoon. That would be 120 miles per hour based on this afternoon's forecast track. It could shift north or south, but the peak conditions could be around Category 3 typhoon. So keep that in mind. Rota, you're within that typhoon wind field with this afternoon's advisory. That could change again. Possibly will. It does. And we've still got another several days till the center of Sinlaku approaches the Marianas. We have an increasing rainfall threat as we see this encounter the slow-moving typhoon developing through the area. That rainfall is going to be tremendous. One recent recollection, 2023's Typhoon Mawar. We saw 20 to 30 inches of rain in roughly a 24 to 36 hour window on Guam as Mawar slowly passed over northern Guam. That led to some significant flooding. So this is a potential. It's not certain yet. We've still got about 72 to 84 hours until we really get into the thick of Sinlaku. But that is one of the concerns that we're watching for, and it's very important to keep that in mind as we move forward. Seas and surf, yes, we're already hazardous with small craft advisories just to a strong northeast trade wind flow. That's going to continue into Saturday and Sunday, but the bigger rise is going to come Sunday night into Monday as Tropical Storm Sinlaku possibly approaches as a typhoon. We could see seas peaking at 20 to 40 feet, perhaps a little bit higher near the center of Sinlaku, but seas will drop a little bit more as you head farther to the north or to the south, but these are going to be hazardous sea conditions. It's not a good time to be on the water, and certainly stay out of the water. Those currents the currents will be deadly. They will be strong, powerful, and we want people to stay out. Please remind your friends, your neighbors, your family to stay out of the water as these conditions arrive in Guam. It is not the time to experience crazy currents. It is going to be deadly and dangerous. So stay out of the water as we head into Sunday and Monday. Impacts, Category 3, maybe Category 4. It's always a good idea to plan for that next category higher, just in case. Keeping it very simple, non-concrete structures are at significant risk under Category 3 or 4 conditions. When we look at Typhoon Mawar passed over northern Guam as a Category 4. Southern Guam, just 20-25 miles farther south, experienced tropical storm conditions, Category 1 typhoon conditions at the most. So the farther you are from the center, the less the winds are. They weaken with distance. But anybody near the center of a Category 3 or 4 conditions, non-concrete structures are at significant risk. If you do not have concrete walls, concrete roof, you're at risk. Poorly constructed structures are at risk. Vegetation, trees, could have significant losses in direct Category 3 or 4 typhoon conditions. There is a notable flood threat. It's not certain just yet. We're watching that. We're looking at that potential, and we're going to be communicating that as it looks more likely, whether it's for Guam or Rota or Tinian and Saipan, should we see farther northward shifts. But keep in mind, we're looking at the potential for a long duration event And so this is going to be trying on all of us as we deal with that mounting fatigue. Right now we're in a communication, we're in the understanding, the awareness phase. We're going to go into the preparation phase soon, but once we go into the experience phase, that's going to be tiring on all of us. So take care of yourselves, keep that in mind. Pull away from the electronics, pull away from the steady drumbeat of information. Relax and breathe. That's going to be important, especially for anybody that's going to go through the center of the system. Now, with all that said, there's still some variability to be expected. It is a natural case with tropical cyclone forecasting. As we go through the next 4 days, we're certainly expecting to see more shifts in the track. That's certainly possible. It could be faster or slower. It could be farther north or south. We're going to be watching for those deviations, communicating it, and putting it onto our webpage. So our tropical cyclone watches and warnings, the most important thing is the wording. So once we go into a tropical cyclone watch, whether it is a tropical storm watch or a typhoon watch, they are both timed for the onset of 39-mile-per-hour winds and within 48 hours. Because once we have gotten 39-mile-per-hour damaging winds, it becomes prohibitively difficult to take care of preparations outside. So we really want everybody to finish preparing for tropical cyclones before these winds have arrived. Now, the other important thing to note is it is merely possible. There is a chance it might not happen. There's a possibility these conditions will arrive. Once we elevate and we get closer within the 24-hour window, now we have an increased certainty in something happening. The wording becomes expected. It's imminent or already occurring. And that is also going to be based at the arrival of 39-mile-per-hour winds. So be aware of that. When we come to the point where we issue a watch for any of the Mariana Islands, we will put that definition into our public advisory just to make that clear, because it's very important we understand the terminology and we're all singing from the same sheet of music. Now, for our webpage, we do have a number of advisories, some outlooks, and Ken, one of our senior meteorologists and acting science officer, just handed me the updated hydrologic outlook, and it does reflect an increase in rainfall expectations for the island. So right now we're looking at the potential for 15 to 20 inches of rain between Sunday night and Wednesday for Guam and Rota, possibly 8 to 15 inches for Tinian and Saipan. So this type of rainfall will have mounting flood threats. So keep that in mind as you look around your neighborhoods, your yards, streets, storm drains, what can be done that will help move that runoff water quickly. So we do have that hydrologic outlook. If you go to our webpage, weather.gov/gum, you're going to see all these. You can click on any of these items to see the latest information. We're going to be seeing more advisories added to that list in the coming day or two. And then, of course, from Micronesia, we have all of your advisories and content down there. So you can find everything that you need on our webpage. It is updated 24/7. We have our forecast for across Chuuk State updated every 6 hours because of the tropical cyclone watches and warnings. And then, of course, for the Marianas, while we're still in a 12-hour rotation, once we have our tropical cyclone watches and warnings for the Marianas, we're going to be updating forecast every 6 hours on our webpage. This is our current operations clock. We get the new forecast from Joint Typhoon Warning Center at the 1s and 7s, AM and PM. That kicks off our 6-hour cycle. And then we have our public advisory. That is the Weather Service version of the tropical cyclone public advisory. What is it doing? Where is it? What can we expect in the next 24 to 48 hours? A lot of your questions we've been seeing on social media can be answered with that one. And so you can find that on our webpage 24/7. Additionally, once we go into a watch or warning for the Marianas, as we are now with Chuuk, we're going to be getting local statements. This is going to be island-specific details regarding the impacts and timing for your island. So this is going to be on our webpage. You can find this around the clock until Sinlaku is out of the region, and this is going to be nonstop. it will be updated more frequently than our Facebook page. And finally, just wanted to show you this. One of the questions we've been getting a whole lot is it rare to get storms this time of year in April or May? And the answer is not necessarily. We do see our peak tropical cyclone climatology in the latter half of the year. That's our wet season, so from summer into the fall months, with a notable peak around September and October. But you'll also see the small little rise in April and May. There's a couple of reasons for that. Typically, some of the oceanic surface features that set up across western Micronesia, they tend to produce disturbances. Yap and Palau do have a pretty wet climatology for this time of year. It's our dry season in the Marianas, but Yap and Palau, especially Palau, can be pretty wet through our dry season because of that pattern that sets up in the far western Micronesia region near Equatorial Trough. It makes it more favorable for disturbances to develop, but when we encounter years like this year, as we go from a La Nina to an El Nino, we're starting to see more westerly winds along the equator, and that does foster more development of disturbances in central, eastern Micronesia, and the farther east, that's when we have more opportunity for those disturbances to develop. We have a lot of notable storms. Pamela, 1976. 2015 had typhoons Bobby, Maysac, that developed in central Micronesia and did a lot of damage and flooding across Chuuk State, and actually came pretty close to the Marianas in 2015. And then, of course, we had Typhoon Mawar in 2023. So definitely not unprecedented, but yes, we do see that little peak. Now, with that said, I'm going to wrap up this evening, and just as we kind of come to a close, just have this graphic to keep this in mind, and you can see this on our webpage in similar graphics. I want to give a shout out to the Joint Typhoon Warning Center. They've been working pretty hard. They're dealing with 3 tropical cyclones across the Pacific, 2 in the South Pacific, and now 1 up in the North Pacific. So they're working hard and keeping us informed with all the forecast information up here, and then also interest down in the South Pacific. And with that, stay tuned to our webpage for our upcoming information and up-to-date forecasts and advisories and everything on Tropical Storm Sinlaku. Thanks for joining us.